Welcome back to another episode of the Holo Help Podcast. Before we jump into today's conversation, I wanted to ask you something. If you get any value out of our podcast episodes, we would love for you to leave us a rating. Click that follow button, click the rating, or leave a review, whatever platform you listen on. Here's why I ask that. It's because it's going to continue to push the message of true health out to more and more people. And that's what we want. We want people to understand the truly healthy life that Jesus offers. Now, in today's episode, Alex sits down with special guest Hampton Dortch, who's a follower of Jesus, a husband, and a dad. He works in leadership development and is a host of a podcast called Wake Up and Lead. And he's focused on helping young, ambitious professionals lead themselves. They talk all things health, how Hampton is pursuing a healthy life in every area and balancing health while pursuing his faith. You're not going to want to miss this conversation, so sit back and enjoy as Alex sits down with Hampton Dortch.
Holo Health listeners, this episode is going to be a treat. I already know it. I have my new friend, Hampton Dortch, with me on this episode, and we're going to talk all things him, his story, and how he pursues health, what he's doing, and all the different areas of his life. Hampton, how are you doing today?
Mr. Alex Cottingham, I am wonderful. You know, right now I'm sitting in my office at work with some books behind me in a golf shirt, and Alex is probably in a gym somewhere wearing a CrossFit Mayhem shirt. And I just, I'm supposed to be talking about like health and fitness. I promise I'm into this stuff, but I look kind of like corporate-y right now. But we're locked in and ready to go.
Your analysis is true. I am at the gym. I did work out earlier, and I am in a CrossFit shirt. But that's okay. Health is more than just going to the gym, and we can talk about that. Hampton, for the people who don't know you and they're new to Hampton Dortch, give us just a quick overview of all things you, and then we can go deeper later. But give us a synopsis. Who are you?
I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I've been here my whole life. When I graduated college, I made the bold decision to go 7 minutes away from home to Samford University.
Nice.
And then I graduated from there in 2020 in the middle of COVID, and then got married shortly after that, and I'm still here and have been a dad for, by the time this comes out, probably 8 months or so. So that's like the rapid fire. I'll back up just a little bit. I am extremely blessed to have amazing parents and two wonderful sisters. And I think I used to breeze by because you've heard so many people say this. So I grew up in a Christian home.
Right.
And
right.
you kind of say that and like it's just not a big deal because, you grow up in the buckle of the Bible Belt in like Birmingham, Alabama, or, a lot of your people I know are in Atlanta and everything. But lately I've just been thinking that's not something to just go over. Like that's such a huge deal. And so many people don't have that. So many people don't have two parents that give them a hug every day. And I had two parents that were like pouring into me and praying for me and had their friends praying for me and help raising me and grandparents that loved me and they brought me to church. And so like I was given so many opportunities like because of that I know a lot of people don't have. And so I just look back as I've now become a dad and I'm extremely grateful for that. And I would say when I went to college, or in high school, I kind of lived two different lives. I had like my church friends and then like my school friends, doing some of the high school stupid guy stuff, just getting into things that I shouldn't get into, partying and stuff like that. And then, but I knew that was not the life that God was calling me to. I'm grateful for the upbringing I had, again, with my parents and my church and everything. And so when I went to college, I was like, I'm going to do the good, Christian boy thing to do. And I'm going to go to Samford, the Christian school. And like, I went there and it was amazing. And I loved it. And the first 2 years of college were wonderful. And I developed at some level, maybe some bit of a bad reputation at the end of high school. And so going into college, I wanted to like do everything right, treat girls the right way, be a great friend to other guys, go to church, be a good boy, And so I kind of put on a show for 2 years of college just to try to, really looking back, build my own kingdom and just make people like me and win the approval of everybody. And then halfway through college, so my now wife and I, we were dating freshman and sophomore year. I know a lot of times people go into college and like, don't start dating somebody immediately. Well, we did that. We're married now, so it worked out. But we had like a really, really challenging breakup halfway through college that led to both of us really coming to find God and ultimately following him. And so the the climax of my story would be halfway through college when I realized that everything that was in my head really was not in my heart. Like I hadn't made my faith my own. And I remember being in a challenging time in my life. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll open up the Bible. I mean, I probably hadn't voluntarily opened up the Bible hardly ever in my life. And I remember opening up to like Psalm 139 kind of randomly. And I was reading it and I just broke down because I was like, I know this. Like, how do I know this verse, this whole passage? And it was because of the school I grew up going to, the parents I had, the church I went to. Like, there were things that I memorized and there was so much I knew about God, but I didn't know him. And so it was this moment of, wow, like I have all this stuff in my head. That's such a blessing. Let's actually put that to practice and live for Christ now and let him be in the driver's seat of my life. So we could spend hours talking about that part of it, but really it was halfway through college when I learned, like, man, my life is not about building my own kingdom. It's about building God's. And that doesn't mean that I don't, work hard in life. And it doesn't mean that I don't focus on fitness and everything. I'm sure we'll get into that. But it's like, who am I doing it for? Is it for me or is it for Christ? And so ended up graduating college and getting married shortly after that. And since then, for the last 4 years, I've worked for a company called WildSpark, which does leadership development, which was really the catalyst for how I'm probably on this podcast right now, just because a lot of organizations have managers that get promoted because they're a great accountant or a great sales rep or a great personal trainer, but they don't know anything about leading people.
Yeah.
And so through working with organizations and helping them, equip people to be effective leaders, that's what I've been doing over the last 4 years. I've just learned a lot about that. And I'll kind of land the plane here. I've looked around at a lot of my peers who are in their early to mid 20s, and usually if you go to college, not that you have to go to college, whatever your first job is, you're probably not going to be a manager of people. But I've seen so many people who crushed it in middle school, high school, and college, in church and sports teams and FCA and fraternities and sororities and campus ministries, and they're leaders, like actual leaders of people by title. And then they graduate college, they get their first job in an accounting firm, and then they have a boss for 5 years, and that's just kind of the way the work is. And you might think that because you don't have a formal leadership title, then you just kind of, show up to work and do your job and get your paycheck. And so there's books I've read, like Clay Scroggins, he's in Atlanta, How to Lead When You're Not in Charge. It's a great book. And then now my podcast, Wake Up and Lead, is really about helping ambitious young professionals learn to lead themselves. Because I think, if you don't know how to lead yourself, then you're not going to be worth following when you get the opportunity to lead other people. And so selfishly, I'm on the journey of really understanding what it looks like to lead myself right now, as I don't have tons and tons of responsibility leading other people, because I know that one day as I get older and get more responsibility, people are going to be looking to me. And most people don't really like their boss. And so I don't want to be that next person. So it's a little bit about me. And my wife is a wedding photographer like yours, which is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. I was going to say, you also have, I know you said that you're married and you have an almost 8-month-old son, daughter, name. What college are they going to? How many languages do they know already? Tell me a little bit about your family.
Oh my gosh. Yes. They are the best thing in the world. My wife, her name is Erica. She is a wedding photographer, like your wife. So we are currently in busy season right now. And so if anyone ever wants to hang out with me and my 8-month-old daughter on a Saturday, I'm probably free. Or you can take her and let me go to the gym or something. We'll talk about how I squeeze that in here. My daughter her name is Mary Collins. She's a girl. And no, she doesn't know any new languages or anything like that, but she's starting to, begin to crawl and things like that. So I'm just having so much fun with them right now.
Man, it's just now starting. I have an almost 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and 1-year-old, and it's just going to get faster and crazier and better every year. And I'm only 5 years into this. So, Hampton, the last introductory question before we kind of just hey, hit it hard, is how do we know each other? How do we connect? Let's give a shout out to our mutual friend, and how did this even come about?
Yes, Tara. That's right. It's
Shout
Tara,
out.
Isn't it?
Yes. She goes to our gym. I just saw her this morning. She was crushing her workout and getting her steps in, and she goes to the gym, and she's like, hey, you need to connect with Hampton. I don't think you guys ever met each other in person, right? You guys just know each other via LinkedIn.
Yes,
Is that right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and she I think just connected us via email, and we hopped on the phone, chatted for 30 minutes. We're like, dude, let's just get on a podcast because we're just very similar, same passions, trying to do similar things. So that's how this came about. Because
Yes.
a common question I get is like, how do you guys know each other? We're like, well, we've only talked to each other twice, but now we're best friends.
Exactly. We're best friends. We call each other every night before bed. But yeah, shout out to you, Tara. I'm super excited to chat with Alex. And it's been cool because it's like you are, 5 years ahead of me, a couple more kids than me. Your wife is a wedding photographer, which I had a lot of questions about because we're just learning a lot at the moment. So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Love it. Let's dive in. I have so many questions off of the 5-minute version of your story, and I do want to get into the health stuff. But the first one's a little bit unique, Hampton. You talked about how a lot of times people will breeze by their faith journey or even just the things that they had in their childhood as far as two parents to give them a hug or siblings to support them or whatever. If your family's listening right now, not your wife and kids, but if your immediate family that you grew up with is listening right now, what do you tell them?
It's a good question. Probably try not to get emotional right now. I just tell them thanks for not giving up on me, honestly, because I was the only boy, the middle child, and they just never gave up on me. And also, like, I was a really good track runner, and like growing up, I played a lot of different sports, and I quit it all to run track, which I thought was kind of like not cool because. What about basketball? What about, baseball and football? Like, those are the cool sports. I'm in Birmingham.
Right.
Like, run track, wear shorts. Are you kidding me? But it was like what I was best at. And I had lots of opportunities to do some cool things with that. And looking back, I ended up quitting because I had a fixed mindset and I didn't want to work hard. And natural talent took me a really long way. But at some point, the natural talent, at least for me, it capped me out. It was like I was the best growing up. But then I was like, okay, I'm going to have to run 70 miles a week and work really hard and eat clean if I want to go run at like a SEC school or something. And I just didn't do it. And looking back, sometimes I wish I did, but also if I did that, then my life would look completely different right now. Probably wouldn't have gone to Stanford, wouldn't have my wife. So I'm grateful for how God wrote my story. But the reason I say that is there was a time where in the midst of having friends whose dads were so hard on them about their report cards and the sport that they played because they were living through them. I remember coming down to my parents' room and my parents were like, "Are you having fun?" And I was like, "No." And they were like, "If you stopped, we would still love you. It's okay. You don't have to go run in college." Like, wow. And I was like, "Really?" And they were like, "Yeah." And so I know it as a parent, it probably hurt for them because they knew that I had lots of opportunity to really push myself and maybe do some big things, but it was just cool to see that they loved me and they didn't care about, accolades or they probably paid and I paid for some of my college, but I was fortunate enough to where they helped me out with a lot of it. And maybe if I would have continued running track, they wouldn't have had to do that. And so it was just cool that they really wanted what was best for me. And then also like my mom, it was, I remember there was a moment where like my mom and dad, I think I was causing problems in their marriage and they would tell you that not major problems, but they were in like arguments because my dad was like, we have to let him kind of fall on his face a little bit and realize that he's being an idiot. And my mom was like, but shouldn't we just lock him in a room? Not that I was like off doing crazy drugs or anything like that, but just kind of typical high school boy stuff. Sure. And it was just really cool to see that my parents, just stuck with me and kept loving me and supporting me. And I just have no idea where I would be without them. And then my sisters, they're amazing too. Them and their husbands are like my best friends now. And so, yeah, I mean, I recognize that I grew up in a home that most people don't ever get. And I'm so grateful for them for sure.
Yeah. Thanks for not giving up on us, fam. That's awesome.
Yes.
Quick side note, what events did you do in track?
Primarily the 800 was my best.
Oh, dude, that is a brutal race or run.
I felt like
event.
I was always one of the faster sprinters like in sports, but I also didn't play, I wasn't a cornerback at the same time.
Sure.
And I wasn't a 100-meter dash sprinter, but I also wasn't like this super skinny cross-country kid. And so I feel like the 800 was kind of right there in the middle where it's basically a sprint. Like you have to have speed, but you also have to have some endurance too.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah.
That middle in between distance. I don't want you to be humble here. I want to actually know, what was your best 800 split ever?
So my sophomore year, I ran a 158, and then I quit after my sophomore year. And yeah, so
hey, you
I
don't
look
have to
back-
justify 158. That is unreal. A sub 2 minute 800 is amazing. I just was curious.
Yeah, well, but I'm getting back into running now. It's funny I go out to the track probably like once a week, and I definitely do not run that fast anymore. But
that's
yeah.
awesome. Hampton, I want to take a right turn here because you said when you were kind of talking about that chapter, you had a fixed mindset. A book right above your head, if you're watching right now, says mindset. Talk to us about what that even is. What is a fixed mindset? What's the opposite of that, and why is that so important?
I could talk about this for so long.
Come on, bring it, baby.
And it's been cool talking to my parents about this because I had the best parents in the world, and they were like, "We didn't know this stuff. We didn't have books like this." And I'm sure there was stuff out there, but I'm excited as a parent now reading a book like Mindset or Grit by Carol Dweck that talks about praising effort over talent. Because in Mindset, somebody with a fixed mindset believes that you're just born with a natural talent and it's just kind of fixed. And so people with a fixed mindset are obsessed with natural talent. They don't like stepping out of their comfort zone. They don't like trying new things, and they only want to do something if they know that like they can win. And a growth mindset is someone that steps out of their comfort zone. It's really the opposite. They step out of their comfort zone. They're open to trying new things. They're open to failure. They ask questions. They want to learn. And ultimately, the root of a growth mindset is humility, for sure. Because I mean, I don't know if it says that exactly in the book, but like what I've taken away from it, I feel like it's humility. Because so often when I look back on my life, I was afraid to really push myself, to fall on my face, to fail. Oh, if I fail, what will people think of me?
Sure.
And if we go with the classic C.S. Lewis definition of humility, of it's not thinking less of yourself, it's just thinking of yourself less.
Right.
And I think so often we're so worried about like what people think of us, and humility is just really like thinking about myself. My favorite book of all time is The Freedom of Self-Forgetfulness, right here. It's like $3 on. It's on $3 on Amazon.
One. Yeah,
it
Keller.
is money. Yes, and yeah, that book has given me a lot of freedom. That's in the title. I've read it a lot, and so all that said, like a perfect example of a fixed mindset. I'll give you two, like from high school, growing up, and like how that's changed now. So, growing up, I would say I was not unintelligent, but I wouldn't say like the classroom IQ was just, I wasn't crushing it there. I was kind of crushing it in some other areas, but maybe not there. And so because of that, I watched my dad, who was in sales for his whole life and did really well. And so that kind of turned into, okay, let me just make it by in high school, and then turn into college. Okay, I'll get the most basic business degree I can possibly get to just make it by. And in front of my friends who, were finance and accounting and econ majors and everything, I was like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go be in sales, and I don't really care about school. It's not that big of a deal. Everyone says your GPA doesn't really matter that much, which there is kind of a lot of truth to that, depending on what you end up doing. And I did get into sales, and I ended up liking it, and it ended up working out. But as I look back and peel back the curtain as to why I was saying that, it was actually due to insecure, and I wasn't thinking less of myself, or I wasn't thinking of myself less. I was constantly thinking of myself and what other people might think of me. So let's say I did try as hard as I possibly could in college, in the business school. I probably wouldn't have been the smartest. I probably wouldn't have gotten all the accolades in the business school, but then I would have been exposed because I wouldn't have had an excuse. But back then it was like, oh, Hampton doesn't really try that hard in school. He applies himself in the fraternity on a campus and has these leadership roles. He doesn't really take school that seriously, but he's still going to figure it out. And looking back, that's just true insecurity, because I know that I justified it by saying, oh, well, I don't really try that hard. If I did, I'm sure I would do that better. But the reason I didn't try as hard as I wanted to is because I feel like I still wouldn't have been the best, and then I wouldn't have had an excuse. And so I almost just feel like gross as I say all
Sure.
of that. That's me being like as open and honest I can possibly be. But now what that looks like, now wanting to have a growth mindset is I am consistently trying to step out of the comfort zone. I am open to failure. I'm open to trying new things. And really that only happens through humility. And I will be the first to tell you that I wake up wired not with humility. And my pastor often says, like, humility is not just this character trait that you can just naturally develop by reading a self-help book. It's a byproduct of spending time with God.
Amen.
So ultimately, Mindset is an amazing book. Like, it talks about the growth in a fixed mindset. Yes, get uncomfortable and do hard things. But for me, I struggle to truly be humble and think less of myself. I can't do that unless I remind myself of how big God is and that he's the one that put breath in my lungs and that he's the one that gave me everything that I have. And so I'll kind of land the plane there. I'm in real time, like wrestling with that every single day, but yeah.
I mean, here at Holo Health, Hampton, we believe health is more than physical. We have God created us body, mind, and soul. We have physical health and mental health and spiritual health. And one of the correct understandings is it's all connected. Our physical health impacts our mental and our spiritual health. And one kind of thing I want to piggyback off what you're saying is the Fix First Growth mindset is massive for our mental health. But it doesn't just stop there, because there's spiritual underpinnings throughout that entire book. I mean, I have read it, I've looked into it. You're exactly right. Like, a growth mindset is vital for, I think, a truly healthy life. But what happens is, what I have seen is, I have coached, and I've been in this industry for over a decade. I've coached hundreds and hundreds of people, and I've seen it just play out in people's lives, a fixed versus growth mindset. One of the main commonalities or consistent things in people who have a fixed mindset is they don't have the security with whatever that looks like, so they're trying to meet their needs in their endeavors. If they go to the gym and they reach a specific body fat percentage, then they're going to meet their own needs and feel good about themselves and feel happy. But when we are in Christ, when we know who we are, our identity is solid in Christ Jesus, all of our needs are met in Him. So now, when our identity is in Christ Jesus, it's Romans 6-8, we now no longer have to meet our needs in anywhere else. We have the security of being, okay, God, I have all of the needs met. I have assurance, affection, satisfaction, significance, purpose, all of these internal needs met first by God and then also by some of our earthly relationships, so that I can remain open to try and fail forward in all the different things with a growth mindset. But if I don't have some of those deep soul longing needs met first in God, because my identity is set, it's gonna cause a barrier to have a growth mindset, because we're like you said, I'm going to try to search for man's approval. What are people going to think of me here? Or maybe I can have an attachment over to the gym in this group. It's like, no. I know who I am in Christ. That is going to allow my mind to stay open, to have a growth mindset, so that I can constantly learn, I can constantly love, and death to self, putting myself below and putting other people first, which is a commandment for us Jesus followers. So there's so many more spiritual underpinnings to a growth mindset that doesn't get a lot of light, but it's way more connected than we think.
Do you think Carol Dweck would let us add that as like a bonus chapter to the book?
Hey,
I'm fired up right now. Come on, dude.
I'm going to email her right now and said, hey, we have an appendix for your book in the next edition. Me and Hampton are going to write this. Will you approve it, please? I'll get that email sent out later.
The first line says, look, so that book is good, but she really only has 50% of it right. If your identity is not in Christ, this book's not going to work anyways. So, yeah, I mean, dude, come on. I couldn't agree more.
Oh,
wow.
My gosh. That's hilarious. Carol, be on the lookout for that email. Hampton, I want to transition to health. We were just talking about mental health. I want to know, when you think of health, what comes to mind, and how do you pursue it? To give us just, if Hampton plus health equals whatever, tell me just how you pursue health in your life.
I mean, my body is a vessel, and everything that I do is like with my body. And that's why I like how you talk about mental health and spiritual health, because it's not just your body. And I heard you even talk about this on one of your podcasts this morning as I was listening to this. And I even like in real time today, right now, feel some level of conviction around fitness in my life is automatic. It's just going to happen. And great, good for me. Let me pat myself on the back. Like I used to, I even the comment I just made, I've heard someone say that 5 years ago, and I'd be like, okay,
whatever,
sick, dude.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
So I'm not just, So I if you're trying to get there, then keep going for it. We believe in you. But I would say, just physical fitness alone can only go so far. One of my buddies, Christian Huff, he has a podcast called 4-8 Men, and he's been on mine like a few times, and he just talks about, what is the verse? What is it? 1 Timothy
4:8?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. About like, physical training is really important, but spiritual training is way more important. And,
right.
I just completely butchered the verse. I didn't memorize that one.
You
but
got the essence of it.
Yeah, exactly. But all that said, I mean, I would say waking up in the morning and just moving. I know movement is a big thing that y'all talk about, has just been huge for me. And there's been, different journeys along the way. Like, for example, I ran growing up. And so when I got to college, I was this, kind of a skinny kid because I like ran track and played soccer. And so I was like, I want to get buff. And so I worked out for like 2 years and didn't know anything about nutrition, but like kind of had some of those newbie gains and was drinking like mass gainer protein shakes that are probably horrible for you, but was doing like curls and bench press. And like, that was basically it. And then like when COVID hit, learned more about the nutrition side of things because I was just kind of at home, like in the last semester of college, barely taking classes. And so I started eating better and learning a little bit more there. And then I got the opportunity to do CrossFit for 2 years. I don't do CrossFit anymore. I told you I worked out at Iron Tribe for 2 years.
Yes,
I know there's a couple gyms in Atlanta.
Now. Yeah.
My CEO is really good friends with their founder, and so I was drinking the Kool-Aid and loved it, and do love CrossFit. But all that said, for multiple different reasons, really it was when I had a baby. It's been really cool to get back into running. So right now it's like if I train like anyone, it's probably like a Nick Bear.
Yeah.
Kind of the hybrid athlete deal where he lifts a lot. Like he says, lift heavy, run far. That's kind of what I do. And I think part of the reason for that is I have just gotten the opportunity, really this feeling of redemption, of running again. And it took me 5, 6, 7, 8 years of being detached from running as my sport. If I don't crush it, then, I'm a failure. To now, like I get up and run very slow in the mornings as the sun is rising and talk to God. And like there's no better way I could like start my day. So like fitness for me, it really like gets me set up for my day. I run in the mornings, and then when my daughter is napping and my wife wants to run a few errands when I get home from work, sometimes I'll like lift weights on the back deck. And so that's kind of what I'm doing like right now. That could always be changing, but I do a lot of like running and lifting. But all that said, my body is a vessel, and I feel like everything that I do, relationships with other people, relationships at work, projects that I'm leading, teams that I'm leading, everything that I'm doing flows from, my body. Obviously, from a spiritual standpoint, that's like the most important thing. But
yeah.
I just think there's something unique about starting, each day or whenever is best for you with some level of physical health, because I feel like you can feel it, you can see it. And I don't know, you get to the point where you just feel off if you don't do something,
What is it? You're going to put me in the spot. 1 Corinthians 6, I think it's 19 through 20. It says, do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit? You are not your own. You were bought with a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. I might have left out a sentence in there.
That sounds right.
I think that's right. But essentially, like you said, we are not our own. We are vessels. We say, like, one of our correct understandings that we try to nail into everyone's brain that comes here and works with us at Holo Health is that health is a stewardship. There's so many parallels between health and your money. Jesus had so many parables about money, like, hey, you were a manager, it's not your own money, you're to give, you're to use the money to help other people, but the money's not your own. You're going to die one day and not take anything with you. and you're to steward the money while you are here on earth well. It's the exact same thing with your health. It's your body is not your own. Jesus literally, the Holy Spirit literally lives inside of us. And what we do with our body not only impacts us and our faith and our relationship with God, but it also impacts the light we shine and how we love one another. I mean, like you said, I try to do some sort of discipline, either physical or spiritual, right when I wake up, because I know when I do, I love my wife and my kids so much better. Now, I don't want to be dependent on that and my emotional state and my body almost like go south if I don't. Like, I still want to love them well when I can't work out, but it allows me to love so much better. And we say here at Whole Health that health is a means to an end. If your motivation to pursue health is just for you, one, that's self-serving, and two, it's only going to get you so far. That if you if you're pursuing health just to look good in the mirror, that will end one day because your health is fleeting, and you'll get there and then realize, oh wow, that feeling I wanted inside of looking good feels good for about 4.5 days, and then it goes on to the next thing, right? But when I say, no, I'm pursuing my health so I can be a better husband, better father, better leader, better neighbor, better volunteer at church, better employee, that is truly sustainable. And it's a means to an end to love one another better, to shine the light, and to be a better vessel, like you said. So 1 Corinthians 6, I believe. But I'll get off my soapbox and let you respond to that.
No, that's good, man. I mean, I've been, if I don't check myself, then a lot of times the whole fitness thing is for me. And also there are days where I always say, you make time for what's important to you. And it's easy to say that, but then you do have a kid and things do come up, and you do have a sick kid, and a kid does cry all night. And like, I imagine as you have 2 and then 3, that changes even more. And so one thing that like I, will just be vulnerable with is I definitely need to be open to schedules changing, and maybe, okay, I'm not going to die if I miss a day of like lifting weights or running or something. And so I would say my wiring is to serve myself. Like if I wake up and I don't remind myself of what my purpose is, and that I'm a child of God, and that I live to glorify Him, and make disciples and love my family, like then a lot of times the fitness thing is very self-serving. So I really like that you brought it up. Like I like the point about it being a means to an end,
I mean, my, you can quote unquote say 9 to 5 job is I own a CrossFit gym here in northern Atlanta, and we have many athletes here, and we get lots of calls into the gym saying, hey, I want to be healthy. And every time I have that call, I say, why? Like, why are you calling me? Why did you reach out? Like, what's your why? And an overwhelming majority are like, I'm just past the point of trying to lift heavy weights. Like, I just want to be able to keep up with my kids and be a good grandparent and just not slow down anymore. But a lot of times it's rooted to their family and their friends. A lot of times it's their kids and their grandkids. But like we said, it's a means to an end. And when that is the motivation, I think that is a little bit more selfless, gospel-centered, rather than self-focused motivation. Hampton, I have a question for you in regards to health, and we're kind of closing in on the end of this conversation. You recently became a dad in the last year. How has your definition and perspective of health changed since then? Because that's one of the biggest parts of your life. Obviously, following Jesus, getting married, having a kid, those are big, big moments in your life. When it comes to your health, how has that changed when you were pre-dad versus now you are a dad? What did that look like?
Pragmatically speaking, just becoming as efficient as possible is one answer. So there's a and I know you have your own gym, and I know it's way better than the gym I'm about to say, but after I quit doing CrossFit, I did go to Lifetime because it was right by my house. And so I went there.
There's no comparison. It's not better or worse. I'm just glad people are out there doing stuff.
Yes, exactly. But it was probably 10 minutes away from my house and close to work. And so pre-kid, after I quit doing CrossFit, I would go there, and I really enjoyed that, and it was really nice. And then after having a daughter, and especially now that I try to run a lot every week and try to lift like a good bit every week, I've tried to. I'm really just thinking about my day and how do I be a good steward of my time and how do I squeeze all of this in. And so, like, for example, with running, instead of driving 15 minutes to downtown Birmingham where it's flat, I'll run outside of my house, and it's a little bit hillier and it's not as pretty, but the 10, 20 minutes of driving it's not necessarily worth it because maybe I'm trying to get a little bit more sleep or have a little bit more time with the family in the morning or a little bit more time at work. And then as far as like lifting right now, I'll do that on the back deck of my house when I get home. And I have a women's bar, 35 pounds. It's great. Honestly, man, I love that it's smaller on my hands. I always am adding the 5s on. So I'll put on like a 45-pound plate, but then I put the 5 on because it can't not be like 135. But for whatever reason, I have a women's bar. That's what I inherited. But I'm able to squat. I'm able to basically I can squat. I can do overhead press. I can bench. I can do incline bench, and I can do pull-ups. And I have a weighted vest. Like I basically have everything I need.
You have the essentials.
But the workouts are 40 to 50 minutes as opposed to walking around, fist bumping, taking 4-minute breaks between heavy sets at a 1.5 hour to 2 hour gym session. And I'm probably 90% as strong as I was before. And the only person that could see a difference in the way I look is probably me.
Yes.
So that's what I'm learning right now. And it's funny. I look back at some of the statements that I probably made before I had a kid and I just wasn't aware. And I imagine some of the things I say right now before I have 2 kids, I'm like, man, I didn't know what I was talking about. But all that said, it's like, I see some people when they get married, when they have a kid, it's like, oh, I don't have time. Fine, I'll just take on the dad bod. It is what it is. And that's like unacceptable for me. I'm not going to do that. But at the same time, just really weighing the cost, is it really, really worth it with the job that I have and I love, with the family that I certainly have and love, like to take all that, to take as much time as I was before, not necessarily, but I've found a way to make it like more efficient, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you're exactly right. When pre-parent versus post-parent, your time gets thrown upside down. And you're talking earlier about your schedule and just being more open-handed with like interruptions and things coming up in your day. I was telling Trevor, who's on this podcast and partner of Holo Health, that was like, every single day looks different for me. I mean, we have, whether I have a check-in at the gym, I'm working out, I'm helping a coach, I'm dropping off my kid at VBS, picking him up from preschool, hopping on a podcast, like there's literally no structure. But one area for me in terms of health is, I've talked about this on a different episode, is viewing those interruptions as invitations to, one, keeping the most important things, and 2, allowing the Holy Spirit to work in those moments. Because when I control my day back to back to back to back, I'm super efficient, but I did exactly that. I controlled my day. Versus when I slow down, I'm open-handed, I allow margin in between everything, and I am present to the moment and see the people over the task and every single thing that God brings my way. I'm able to align myself with what God's doing just here in Cumming, Georgia, so much more. So I don't know where I was going with that, but I was kind of landed there.
Yeah, no, it's good. And I feel like everything that I've said today, you say something and I'm learning from you. So this is just really helpful for me as somebody who's, 4 or 5 years ahead of me and in a lot of different ways in life. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. And yeah, I remember there's a guy, I'll shout him out. His name's Pete Durand. He's probably 55 years old.
Come on, Pete.
He's done like Ironmans, has a 6-pack, 55 years old, CEO of a company, absolute beast, loves the Lord. I remember, I think 3 years ago, it was probably the second podcast I'd ever been asked to be on. And he said, like, in 5 years from now, what's a couple things that you want to be true about yourself? And I think I talked about like the way I'm a dad, the way I serve the Lord. But I was like, also, I want to be unreasonably fit. I think I said that. And I think I still feel that way. Like my inner meathead is coming out. And we love this stuff. And he was like, I love that. He goes, it'll be interesting to see how your definition of fitness changes as kids come into the mix and everything. And I feel like I'm watching it happen in real time where you just view it differently,
yes.
And you're being fed like, and this is a whole nother podcast episode, but if you get online right now and look on, the TikToks and the Instagrams at what guys probably 5 years younger than me are posting, who are spending 3 hours a day in the gym, and good for them. They have time to do that, but it's just,
it's a different world.
I can go down it's a whole different world. I could go down a rabbit trail of all that, but maybe next time.
Yeah, maybe next time. Hampton, this has been a blast. I feel like we're only getting the tip of the iceberg here. We could probably talk for 4 hours. But last question, then I'll end with just a fun way is, what do you want to leave the listeners with? Is there any main takeaway? What are you growing through? Maybe what do you feel like you're stuck in and just have to remind yourself of truth? But if someone's leaving this episode with a bottom line or a main point, what do you want to leave them with?
Ooh, okay. This is something that we'll see how this goes. We'll see how this goes. Two quick things. One, John Mark Comer wrote multiple different books, and a lot of you have probably heard of him before. And I heard him say that he starts every morning like this. And Alex might not post this episode after I share what I'm about to share, but I'm going to do it anyways. This is how I've started every morning for probably the last 2 months, and it's been really interesting. I ordered a skull. Now it's plastic. It is not real.
Yeah.
But I ordered one of those. It probably came from a Halloween shop online. And in the morning, and again, some people are going to think I'm crazy for this, but this guy, he said he did it. But I look at it I do look at it every morning, and I think of the verse Psalm 90:12, which is, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. And I remind myself that my days are numbered and that I am going to die. And that also there's a good chance that my great-grandkids might not know my first name. And it's so crazy because when I wake up, my wiring is to think, okay, what am I doing for a workout today? What calls do I have at work? Like immediately, it's like thinking about all those things. And for me, who's a pretty extreme person, and that might not be you, sitting there and looking at a skull and realizing that that's going to be me one day gives me a whole lot of perspective. So that's one. The other rapid fire one, this one's a little bit more lighthearted. This one has wrecked me lately. I operate best when I remember that God is my father. And the best way for me to do that is to think of myself as like a little boy. And God put this picture in my mind. And after having a kid, I'm sure, you see the parallels all the time. But there's a song, Chandler Moore from Maverick City. I think maybe he's partnered with Elevation Worship or something in it. And it's called The One You Love. And he talks about like, you take me just as I am. You choose me all over again. I am the one you love. I don't have to prove anything. There's room at the table for me. And so this, I've got a group of guys I meet with every Friday morning, and we did this together. And they were like, Hampton, what are we doing here? But I was like, just trust me. We'll see how it goes. And I had everybody pull up a picture from when they were like a toddler, like maybe barely learning to walk or maybe learning to run. And like we listened to that song just telling us about like how God loves us and he is our father and he's chosen us. And for me, young in my career, ambitious, trying to do big things in the world and be fit and, network with all these people, taking a step back and having this vision of like, I'm like, if I operate out of the mindset of that, like I am a child of God and like he's holding me in the palm of his hands, that's like the most humbling thing in the world, but it's also so freeing too. And so that's, if the skull thing isn't for you, that's another activity I've done to just remind myself that God is in control and that he loves me and that I don't have to prove anything. This book talks a lot about that too, the freedom of self-forgetfulness. So there's two little exercises for you. We'll see if anybody runs with those. If anybody comes in and gets mad at Alex for somebody talking about a skull on here, then I'm sorry, but works for me.
Dude, I've already gotten 17 emails in my inbox in the past 60 seconds because people are tuning in live saying, what is... No, I'm just kidding. I know exactly what you're talking about as far as the skull imagery and it on the desk. I think that's such a great reminder. I love those. I could literally respond with 14 different thoughts on each of those, but for the sake of time, maybe we'll have to save that for another episode. Hampton, you're the man. This has been inspiring to me. You're doing such good work. You exude the spirit and the love, and just your story is captivating. And I just appreciate your influence and your leadership and your time and just what you're doing in this world. So I appreciate that we're best friends. And next Saturday, when our wives are out shooting weddings, I'll drive over to Birmingham with my 3 kids because we'll be doing nothing.
So, hey, well, it'll probably, I mean, if getting in the car for you is like helpful, then you can, but it'd probably be easier for me to come to you. So we'll talk.
That's true.
Thanks, man. It's been awesome coming on.
All right, Hampton. Hey, really quick, I always like to end with a fun way. People who know me are going to laugh at me. I use ChatGPT all the time. very rarely for work stuff, but I'll just randomly type stuff in. So I just pulled up my phone and I said, Chat GPT, give me 7 would you rather questions about fitness. So we're going to rapid fire 7 would you rathers about fitness, and this is how we're going to end. Ready?
Let's go. Okay.
First one. Would you rather only be able to do cardio or strength training workouts for the rest of your life?
Oh, that's so painful, but strength training.
Yeah, I'd have to as well. That pains me
I
to
can't
answer.
I hate saying that, but I can't go back to skinny cross country kid Hampton anymore.
Would you rather have a personal trainer for free but only be able to work out at 5 a.m. or pay for a personal trainer and work out whenever you want to?
I think I work out at 5 a.m. anyways, so I don't think it really matters. But yeah.
You're like, it does matter. 3, would you rather be able to run a marathon with ease but have no upper body strength, or be able to lift twice your body weight but struggle to run a mile?
Oh, dude, that's so hard.
That is so
hard.
hard.
Like what I do. It's like I do both. I try to do both of these things.
Like, both of these are important to me.
I mean, I'd probably, as much as I hate to say it because I do want to be strong and everything, I'd probably, if I could barely run a mile, I don't know how long I'm going to live.
I would rather lift twice my body weight because it says struggle to run a mile, but I'm still running a mile, which means it's slow, but I can do it.
Okay.
I'm reading too much into it, though.
You convinced me.
All right, 4 more. Would you rather do 100 burpees every day or run 5 miles every day?
I already run 5 miles every day, so 5 miles.
You're like, easy. Would you rather have a 6-pack but be unable to – these are all about running. 6-pack but be unable to run a mile, or be able to run a marathon but have no visible muscular definition?
I mean,
this is basically like function versus looks.
That's a tough one. Man, I don't know. What about you?
My soul is gonna say run a marathon but have no visible muscular definition, even though that would suck because my capacity to keep up with my kids would be so much greater. Versus if I just look good, but then I got out of breath with everything I do, I'd be just a bozo.
You know what? I agree. Same.
You're like, Alex, what do you pick? Okay, I'll do that one. 2 more. Would you rather never be able to use weights again and only do body weight, or never be able to use weight? Basically, weights, no weights, only body weight, or no body weight, only weights, is essentially what the question's asking.
Only weights.
Last one. Would you rather work out alone in a fully equipped home gym, or work out in a crowded commercial gym with limited equipment?
Alone.
Yeah, I would do alone.
Alone for sure.
I would rather do with a solid group of guys with no equipment and just do body weight and running, because I'm all about the group of people. But if it's a crowded commercial gym where I still know nobody, heck no.
Tripods everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Selfies and all the stuff. Well, there's our ChatGPT generated 7 would you rather questions. Is a fun way to end. Hampton, you're the man. I appreciate you. And listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you another episode. And until then, you're a legend. See ya.